I've just invited them to the...
Doesn't matter. I'll take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Over there?
Is Shanta Kumar ek baar khatam kar le? He's just talking about his blood pressure thingy. So we'll just do it.
Hello, check. Right, I was summoned by Mr. Rahul Singh, and I think my name was also called out earlier when I was walking about. I feel a little like a person in a Baptist church who says, I am now healed and I can walk again, I can see again. So, the purpose of my little short interruption, I don't look like Divya Datta, as you well know, is I've been taking treatment from Kovi Veda down there and Food Veda down there at the stall. I'm a diabetes 2 patient. I stopped taking my medicines yesterday. I came in with a 101/81 score in the morning, fasting. I took his meals, and after taking his meals, by the end of the evening, I was 120. So even after eating, my sugar continued to drop. This morning, he told me last night to go and have a proper meal, not the meal he was giving me, which I did. And this morning, my sugar was 169, lower than yesterday, but still pretty high, with no other allopathic medicines. And a little while ago, just before lunch, after breakfast, it was 136. So it seems to have some interesting effects. I hope that this is sufficient testimony for some of you who are interested, for you to go and meet him and maybe avail of his magic elixir. Thank you very much.
We request Divya Datta and Anup Soni to come onto the stage.
Day zero, load the MO, cafe Olay, ready to go, this is the mojo. Skip equipment, cue the fulfillment, if it works like this. Nuke the hydro, stir it.
Award-winning actor Divya Datta recounts her experience with the stalwarts of Bollywood, who played a significant role in her journey in films. The inspiration they have been in her life, through their immersive interactions inspiring the changes in her life, is what Divya Datta will talk about in conversation with Anup Soni. Anup, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, Divya. Ki hal chal ne guddi ji?
Shardi ke lunch.
Why I said this, I'll tell you later. Okay, let's not waste time and let's start and come to the book now. Divya, everyone knows you as an actor. Your varied roles, different kind of films you have done, and variety of roles. So as an actor, everybody knows you. ये writing कैसे शुरू हुई? मतलब पहले तो the first book, Me and Ma, तो मुझे पता है कि how close you are to your mother. I have seen that in last 20-21 years. लेकिन किताब लिखने का idea कैसे? और फिर उसके बाद ये दूसरी किताब, The Stars in My Sky. तो पहले ये writing का सिलसिला कैसे शुरू हुआ? I'm sure everybody would like to know how an actor decided to write books.
पहला तो सारे अनु सत श्री अकाल. I was always wondering कि lunch तो बाद एकदम किਵੇਂ सारे बह जाते ने, but thank you. You've been a fabulous audience right here. And thank you, Anup, for taking over this session. Very dear friend of mine. And to answer your question, I have always been writing. School से वो जो या college में हमारी जो magazines होती थी, कहा जाता था कि उस लड़की से एक कहानी ज़रूर लिखवा लेना. So then for Kavalji I've written for a while. Many columns I have written. And then I wrote for Tribune for many years. And what I realized was everyone said कि छोड़ना नहीं, करते रहना, because we relate to what you write. And I think जो चीज़ें आप बहुत ज़्यादा fear करते हैं जब वो आपकी ज़िंदगी में आएंगी कहीं ना कहीं. So after I had lost my father very young, when I was like barely 6, my biggest fear was to lose my mother. And when it finally just that thing came right in front of me, I didn't know what to do with it. And then another emotion came to me कि भाई ये जो माँ है जो मेरी बेस्ट फ्रेंड है और कहीं ना कहीं मेरी एक रोल रिवर्सल हुआ बच्ची बन गई और इतना साथ दिया. I am utterly grateful to my mother for allowing me being a doctor and coming from a doctor's family, for letting me do what I really wanted to do, that is being an actor. And I wanted to celebrate that friendship. And hence that me and Ma happened. And I must tell you, it was KSLF where I brought the book for the first time. It was here that I was introduced to the world of authors, writers, and this lovely audience.
Kya baat hai.
And so that's why I think this becomes like a parent fest for me. So, about this book, thankfully...
But before you say something about this book, मैं एक बात कहना चाहता हूँ. एक शेर तो नहीं है, लेकिन एक बात है कि जब आप होते हैं ना, तब आप सबसे ज्यादा खूबसूरत होते हैं. और दिव्या के बारे में मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये हमेशा आप ही होती है. आई एम श्योर पीपल हु नो दिव्या, यू नो, दिस इज द वे शी इज, यू नो. कोई ऐसा दूसरा रूप नहीं है जो है आपके सामने. सो ये स्पेशली द स्टार्स इन माय स्काई, ये जो किताब है, normally, you know, actors when they write book about their journey, they write this kind of a book जब almost अब कर लिया बहुत काम, you know, going to retire now. So you talk about you know, my whole journey कि मैंने क्या क्या काम किए. But she has written this book at the peak of her career. She's very busy working in OTT, films, everything. और उस वक्त आपने ये book लिख रही. तो ये आइडिया कैसे आया इस किताब का?
Thankfully, Anup, I wasn't called a one-book wonder. नहीं तो होता है कि एक्टर है, चलो एक शौक पूरा कर लिया, एक किताब लिख दी, चलो चलो अब एक्टिंग करो. But everywhere, wherever I went, people asked me what's next. And I wondered what is it that I'm most passionate about. And that I was very clear about is the world of movies. It had to be that. And I was like, do I need to write about the movies? It just brought me a broad smile and something warm in my heart. And that was gratitude. It was about, देखो journey हम सबकी ज़िंदगी में खुद की होती है, लेकिन आप किन लोगों से मिलते हैं रास्ते में, कौन आपका हाथ थाम लेता है, कौन आपको हौसला अफजाई दे देता है. Somebody like Mr. Bachchan in some place where he just encouraged me without even knowing. So I thought I have to dedicate each chapter to all these people who came into my life, one by one, in different movies, the experiences I had. It is so magical that I've grown up watching their movies. Then you go into their world and act with them or be directed by them. And then somewhere you bond very well with them. तो मेरे लिए ज़िंदगी एक बहुत full circle थी और मैं कहीं ना कहीं इन सब लोगों को शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहती थी. That thank you for being in my life, thank you for making my film journey so very beautiful. And I'm so glad Mr. Bachchan, who's the reason that I actually think I'm in the movies, wrote the foreword for this one. So और क्या मांग सकती थी? So I think I'm really happy.
Great. Okay, see, before we get into the chapters, because मैंने किताब पढ़ी है और उसमें से कुछ chapters ऐसे हैं जिनके बारे में I'm sure आप भी बात करना चाहोगे and people will also like to listen to that. But इतने सारे लोग जो इस किताब में mention हैं, I'm sure और भी बहुत लोग होंगे, you know, जिन्होंने आपकी ज़िंदगी को एक मकाम दिया होगा या उस journey में कहीं ना कहीं एक, you know, एक push, एक हाथ दिया होगा. तो was it difficult to choose कि यार there is a certain restriction के इतने ही pages की किताब होगी तो कुछ लोग मिस हो गए इसमें से, वो difficult थी वो choice?
दो लोग तो यहीं बैठे हैं.
अच्छा हाँ, हम दोनों तो है ही नहीं.
जो मिस हो गए मैं ज़रूर part 2 करूँगी क्योंकि मेरी किताब successful हो गई है.
नहीं, या फिर हमें कुछ और before she starts writing the second edition of this, हम लोगों को कुछ अच्छा करना पड़ेगा दिव्या के लिए ताकि हमारा नाम उस किताब में आ सके.
No, but I think sometimes you just take friends for granted and you should. There were certain chapters that I thought I have to mention because they were from my growing up years. And कहीं ना कहीं वो हो या आप हो उन chapters में हैं ज़रूर, लेकिन वो chapters शायद dedicated नहीं हैं. लेकिन yes, there were a few people I really needed to talk about, and most of them have been people I have grown up watching, and it was I'm sure you're not one of those. So but yeah, बहुत सारे लोगों से मैं मिलती हूँ and I feel इन पर एक chapter लिखना था. And well, I think that's life, no? It's never complete and you don't put a full stop ever. It's always a comma.
Okay, so now I will pick up my choices, you know.
Okay.
First, I want you to talk about Mr. Bachchan. Why? Someone like him working for more than 50 years, और आज even in 2022 अगर आप किसी एक्टर से पूछेंगे जो अपना फिल्मों में करियर बनाना चाहता है, आप किसके साथ काम करना चाहेंगे, तो वो ये ज़रूर कहेगा that you know I want to do one film with Mr. Bachchan, जो मेरा सपना अभी तक पूरा नहीं हो पाया है. मैं ऐसे ज़रूर है कि because I was on the hot seat for 2 episodes in different years for some charity, तो वैसे उनसे मिलने का मौका मिला, तो KBC खेल लिया उनके साथ, लेकिन एक्टिंग नहीं कर पाया हूँ. तो मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि I want you to talk about Mr. Bachchan's role in that journey of yours when you worked with him in 2-3 films you have done with him.
5.
5, yes.
Well, I think I began my journey with him when I was 4. I used to tear my mother's saris and dupattas, and I used to watch the stall man and say, he's magic on screen. And I didn't know how to pronounce his name. But all I knew was I wanted to belong to that world where he belonged. And I used to dance on all his songs. I used to invite people, little kids from my neighborhood, bribe them with gulab jamun samosa ki party and say, listen, you must applaud when I'm dancing. So somewhere I felt very close to Mr. Bachchan just doing that. But I think somewhere I was very clear I wanted to belong to that industry. And when I joined the movies, he came to encourage us. मैं थी, सोनाली बेंद्रे थी, वो हमारी classes थी. And I was frozen when I was told Mr. Bachchan's coming to meet us. And I think the time was 11 a.m., but he was there at 10:50. And so मैंने रात को बहुत rehearsal की थी कि मैं ये बात करूँगी, वो बात करूँगी, I have to ask this, I have to ask that. I couldn't utter a word. And he just gave me one look, he smiled and he left. And मेरे सब दोस्तों ने मेरा बहुत मजाक उड़ाया कि बहुत बनती है कि अमिताभ बच्चन fan and you didn't even speak a word. And then I got a chance to do Bachchan with him. I don't know how many of you have seen Bachchan, but I hated playing that nasty daughter-in-law. And what happened in that was that I didn't know how to disconnect myself from the role I was playing. Here I was hero worshipping Mr. Bachchan, and there I was mouthing those nasty lines. So once I reached home, I just broke down. And my mother said, what, you didn't do well today? I said, no, Mama, it was lovely. She said, why are you crying? I didn't know why I was. But I think Mr. Bachchan knew, because the next day, my usual chirpy good morning wasn't there. So I said, good morning, sir. So he said, you come here. So I just went to him. He said, do you know you're being very mean to me in this film? So I was suddenly defensive. I said, but sir, this is a film and I'm just, mouthing my lines. And there was pin drop silence from his side. He says, तुम्हें पता है मेरे fan तुम्हें छोड़ेंगे नहीं. And then he called, गच्चक मंगवाई उन्होंने मेरे लिए, मुझे खिलाई. Made me feel easy. How many people, a superstar to say the least, would observe a newcomer, see that she is uncomfortable, give her the warmth and affection that she needed that time, teach me without even telling me that your role is different, and role and real life's real and real is always very different. Without saying anything, how would I ever forget that? So for me, Mr. Bachchan is Mr. Bachchan not just because he's a superstar, but for the person that he is. When I released my first book, and I had the foreword by Shabana ji, and my brother said, who would you want to come and launch the book? I said, if I had my way, it should be Mr. Bachchan. So he says, then call. I said, no, what if he says no? He says, Are, call to kar. And I didn't call him, I messaged him. And पूरा दिन मैं मोबाइल देख रही थी कि कब आएगा मैसेज, ना ही बोल देंगे पक्का. And I just was very irritable and all that. And then I receive a message saying, कब आना है, कहाँ आना है, बता देना. So it felt so lovely that, again, as I said, I have nothing else but gratitude for somebody like him.
No, I remember this. I was there at the book launch. और जब Mr. Bachchan पहुँचे थे वो book को launch करने के लिए, she wanted to tell him something about the book before he goes on stage. So obviously, अब भीड़ थी, लोग थे, तो मतलब बच्चन साहब को ऐसे दिव्या की बात सुनने के लिए. He calls me Jaya ji, height की वजह से. There's one picture also. So he's talking to her like that. और दिव्या के बारे में हमारा एक जोक भी है दोस्तों में कि भाई मैं इनको तब से जानता हूँ जब ये बहुत छोटी थी और अभी भी बहुत छोटी हैं, अभी तक छोटी हैं ये. ओके, यस, आई एम श्योर मिस्टर बच्चन के बारे में बहुत सारे किस्से और भी होंगे यहाँ पर. मेरे पास भी किस्से हैं, लेकिन वो फिर कभी सुनाऊंगा जब मेरी उनसे पहली मुलाकात हुई थी. नाउ आई कम टू अनदर चैप्टर इन योर बुक विच इज अबाउट मिस्टर यश चोपड़ा. मुझे लगता है कि नो एक्ट्रेस विल एवर से कि मैंने कभी ये सपना नहीं देखा कि मैं यश चोपड़ा की फिल्मों में हीरोइन बनूं, इंक्लूडिंग यू नो. सो यश जी के साथ कैसे मुलाकात हुई और क्या बातचीत हुई है? हाउ डिड यू गेट दैट फिल्म वीर ज़ारा?
So there's one chapter in this book which is dedicated to Yash uncle, and it feels so good to just call him Yash uncle. यश जी के साथ हर कोई काम करना चाहता है, और मैं ना डे ड्रीम किया करती थी. लुधियाना में थी, कॉलेज में लास्ट मिनट की पढ़ाई करती थी और टॉप करती थी. लेकिन मुझे बीच में एक ब्रेक मिलता था जो मेरा वक्त होता था, जहाँ मैं फिल्म फेयर, स्टारडस्ट, सब मैगजीन्स बिल्कुल पढ़ लेती थी. And I used to just sit and daydream and say, so Yash Chopra says my next heroine is Divya Datta, opposite so and so. And I would say, and the best actor goes to Divya Datta. I used to just constantly say that. And when I got selected for this Stardust competition, the final day, there were 5 people sitting right in front of me for the final selection, जो मुंबई में था, जहाँ मैं और मेरी माँ हाथ पकड़ के बिना किसी को बताए secretively वहाँ गए थे. So my uncle is a director as well, but we kept it a huge secret. So ये 5 लोग थे: शेखर कपूर, सूरज बरजात्या, सुभाष घाई, and Yash Chopra. And yeah, there was one more person. They were all sitting there. And I had like total, my legs were shaking, but मेरी माँ उधर बैठी ऐसे मेरे लिए पाठ कर रही थी, और इतनी लंबी खूबसूरत प्यारी लड़कियाँ आसपास. मैंने कहा मेरा कोई चांस नहीं है. फिर मैंने कहा ये जो शख्स है यश चोपड़ा, इनके साथ मुझे काम करना है, शिफॉन साड़ीज़ पहननी है, एल्ब्स में गाने गाने हैं, and you know I want to be that heroine. And I just performed and I performed, and there was no expression there, and I thought हो गया मेरा, तो नहीं होने वाला. I finally got selected in the Stardust, to cut long story short. And then one day I got a call from Aditya Chopra saying, Yash ji wants to meet you and I want to meet you for Veer Zara. मैंने कहा लो जी, मेरी तो किस्मत खुल गई, अभी मैं heroine बनने वाली हूँ. So when I went and I heard the story, and then they said, so there is Shah Rukh in it, Mr. Bachchan in it, Preeti है, Rani है, हेमा जी हैं, मनोज हैं. तो मैंने कहा मैं क्या कर रही हूँ, वीर ज़ारा तो हो चुके हैं इसमें कास्ट. So then they said there is Shabbo in it and we want you to play the friend's role. My face dropped. I said, Yash Chopra ki film mein where you want to be the chiffon clad heroine. If I play a friend, I'll be a friend for life to every heroine possible. I think Aditya kind of saw that and he said, listen, if we thought anybody could have done it, we won't call you. And trust me, you will always be loved for it. So there was something that they said. I had a blast doing that film. उस film का homework, dialects, उसकी look. I actually enjoyed the process of a Yash Chopra film. और premiere जब हुआ उस film का, और मैंने अपनी माँ का हाथ ऐसे tight पकड़ा हुआ, and we are watching. Interval में मैंने कहा मैं कैसे बाहर निकलूँ? अब I am everyone's best friend. I got out, and for the first time I was crowded. I was like, who's this girl? ये पाकिस्तान से आई है, यश जी इसको किधर से लायो? मैंने सिर्फ ऊपर देखा और कहा कि in the most unassuming ways, आपके ख्वाब पूरे ज़रूर होते हैं. I became a Yash Chopra heroine for sure, in a very unconventional way, but yes.
Yeah, I was wondering because कई बार ऐसा होता है कि आप यश चोपड़ा की हीरोइन बनना चाहते हैं और वो कह रहे हैं कि भाई हीरोइन के दोस्त का रोल कर लीजिए आप. You know, as an actor, I can understand. क्योंकि मैं जब नया बॉम्बे आया था एक्टर बनने, मुझे सिर्फ हीरो के दोस्त के रोल ऑफर होते थे. क्योंकि ना तो ऐसा लगता था कि मैं गिटार बजाते हुए उतरूंगा स्क्रीन पे, आऊँगा बाइक से उतरूंगा. सो हमेशा ऐसे हीरो के दोस्त ही रोल ऑफर होते थे. ओके, आई हैव रेड इन दिस बुक, और ऑल्सो देयर इज आई हैव हर्ड फ्रॉम समवन दैट कि आप शाहरुख खान का कनॉट प्लेस में इंतजार कर रही थी. मतलब उनके लिए ये क्या कहानी है? मतलब कनॉट प्लेस में कैसे पता चला कि वो वहाँ घूम रहा है और आपको लगा कि वो आपसे आके मिल लेगा?
You know, so this again is in the chapter which is dedicated to Shah Rukh. So Shah Rukh had done this, of course, a lot of people my generation would know, Fauji. और हम सबको बहुत बड़ा क्रश हुआ करता था शाहरुख पर. और तो जब मैं फिल्मों में आई तो आई वाज लाइक आई हैव टू वर्क विद हिम एंड आई वाज ऑफर्ड अ फिल्म कॉल्ड बाजीगर एक्चुअली. और सोचें तो सही कि इस लड़की को डेट क्लैश हो गया था और बाजीगर नहीं कर पाई थी. एंड देयर वर 2-3 ऑप्शंस एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स आई वाज द सेकंड थर्ड थिंग, बट वो हुआ नहीं फिर. एंड फिर मुझे पता चला वो दिल से नाम की एक फिल्म कर रहे हैं. तो मेरे एक कॉमन दोस्त थे एंड आई सेड आई हैव टू do this film. Now, how to meet Mani Ratnam? So he said, look, go meet Shahrukh and he will just guide you. अब शाहरुख शूट कर रहे थे दिल्ली में कनॉट प्लेस में. उस वक्त वैनिटी वैन्स नहीं हुआ करती थी. सो ना तो मेरे पास मोबाइल था उस वक्त. तो मैं जब गई तो मुझे कहा गया कि आप एक स्पॉट पे खड़े हो जाना, somebody is going to escort you. So I said, all right, I will go there. And I मतलब शाहरुख अगर कुछ कर रहा हो तो कनॉट प्लेस ऐसा मैंने कभी देखा ही नहीं है. इतना भरा हुआ लोग ही लोग, people galore. I mean, it was full. It was like a sea of people. और मैं एक छोटी सी वहाँ खड़ी हुई एक जो कोना मुझे बताया गया था. I'm like, how is Shahrukh going to find me? And I saw Shahrukh doing a chase sequence, running around. And then I was a little disappointed. I was turning back and going. And suddenly an entourage came of these security people. Said, आप दिव्या दत्ता हो? मैं कहा हाँ जी. सर ने बुलाया है. तो मैं कहा अरे वाह. सो देन आई नाइसली वेंट. एवरीवन लुक्ड एट मी सो एनवियसली कि ये कौन है जिसको शाहरुख ने बुलाया है. इतना सब गाइड करके इसको लेकर जा रहे हैं. एक छोटी सी जीप थी और जीप के अंदर हमने मीटिंग किया और जहाँ मैंने उन्हें कहा कैन यू हेल्प मी डू दिस. ही वाज सो स्वीट. वो फिल्म मैं कर नहीं पाई फॉर अ वेरी स्मॉल रीजन कि आई दैट टाइम लुक्ड अ लॉट लाइक मनीषा कुराला. सो मनी सर सेड कि भाई 2 लड़कियाँ एक जैसी दिखेंगी तो फिल्म नहीं कर सकते. सो देन ऑफ कोर्स प्रीति डिड दैट रोल. लेकिन आई नेवर फॉरगेट शाहरुख फॉर बीइंग द स्वीट हार्ट दैट ही वाज. और वीर ज़ारा में जो उन्होंने मेरी मदद की थी, मुझे कैमरा एंगल्स नहीं आते थे एंड ही सॉ कि मैं कवर हो रही हूँ. सो ही जस्ट केम एंड सेड डीडी यू आर गेटिंग कवर्ड. So, and I just moved and I said, thank you so much. And he says, I won't be there on every set, look over yourself. So, ऐसे छोटे छोटे incidents where somebody unknowingly teaches you something, makes you stronger, makes you more confident. I think this is what this book is all about. I call it a book of gratitude, and there's so many people I think I have to be grateful to.
Yeah, मतलब अभी when I'm going to see Dil Se again and I'm going to see that song Jiya Jale Jaan Jale, I'm going to imagine Divya now. So let's watch Dil Se again and imagine Divya in that song. She would be fabulous. Okay, ये आपने जब बहुत सारे कुछ I think around 15-16 stars are mentioned in this book. Did you show all of them what you're writing about? Did you share this with them? And if, what was their reaction?
Oh yes, I mean I wouldn't write anything without sharing and such amazing reactions. I think मुझे मेरा वो क्या बोलते हैं प्रसाद वहीं मिल गया. Beat Mr. Bachchan को कुछ लोगों को मेल किया, कुछ लोगों को खुद जाके सुनाया. And you know what is very beautiful is that we know so many people on a day-to-day basis very well. But how many times do you tell them what you really feel for them or about them? बोल ही नहीं पाते यार, शायद वक्त नहीं मिलता या मौका नहीं मिलता. लेकिन जब उन्होंने मेरे चैप्टर्स पढ़े, I have seen them moisty-eyed, I have seen them give me a big hug, I have seen moments of silence where none of us spoke anything. And I have heard them tell me what they haven't told me so many years. तो बड़े प्यारे प्यारे से रिएक्शंस. और गुलजार साहब और मेरा रिश्ता है कि हम खत लिखते हैं एक दूसरे को, मेल्स लिखते हैं, फ़ोन पर नहीं बात करते. तो उन्होंने इतना प्यारा मैसेज मुझे भेजा जो मैं कहीं ना कहीं रोज़ उसको पढ़ लेती हूँ कि ज़रा नवाजी आपने हमें अपनी किताब का एक अहम हिस्सा बनाया. सो इट फील्स रियली ब्यूटिफुल.
Sweet, very sweet. Okay, see, I don't want to go into the like not nice thing about the book, but इस बुक में बहुत सारी ऐसी बातें हैं जो अच्छी बातें हैं ना. लेकिन किसी भी एक्टर की जर्नी में बहुत सारे ऐसे इंसिडेंट्स होते हैं जो आपको हर्ट भी करते हैं, you know. वो चाहे because of rejection हो. See, rejection is part of our profession and every profession. But you know, it's not only about rejection. It's about, in our industry, they say that film industry is very cruel. Cruel means people are not cruel, but because it's all about success. I personally feel that film industry is a non-specialized profession where everybody and anybody can be your competitor. Tomorrow if I want to decide कि मैं acting करते बहुत बोर हो गया हूँ, चलो कल से मैं ना 2-3 सर्जरीज कर लूँगा, I can't do that. But a doctor who's been like doing his surgeries for 20 years and decides, nahi yaar, you know, I was a good actor in my during my college days. I want to try my luck once. He can still be your competitor, and you never know, he'll be successful also. तो रिजेक्शन तो एक चीज हो गई, लेकिन कई बार बुरे इंसिडेंट्स होते हैं जो आपको हर्ट करते हैं. तो मैं ये नहीं कहूंगा कि वो इंसिडेंट आप हमारे साथ शेयर करें. हाउ डिड यू डील विद दैट? वो एक होता है ना, आपका मॉरल डाउन हो जाता है और एक आप बहुत ही ड्रीम्स लेकर आते हैं और यहाँ पे आपको लगता है ये क्या हो गया यार.
थैंक यू फॉर आस्किंग दिस क्वेश्चन अनूप. आई थिंक पंजाबी इतने सारे जिन्ने बैठे ने दे विल रियली रिलेट. जब तुसी पंजाब तो होने या मतलब जिथों भी करो आने हो, यू वेरी प्रोटेक्टेड, यू वेरी पैम्पर्ड, यू वेरी लुकड आफ्टर. कोई भी चीज़ की लोड़ होए तो हाँ जी कोई हैगा नाल, किते जाना है कोई हैगा नाल जान नूं, किसी ने कुछ क्या ला मैं पता करा की होया बेटा. तो रिजेक्शंस कदे इन्नियां पिंच नहीं कर दिया. लेकिन गोइंग इनटू द वर्ल्ड where you have to fend for yourself, look over yourself. And in the industry, the most intriguing thing is that nobody says no to you. Nobody says, आप हमारे साथ काम नहीं करेंगे, because you don't know who will be a star tomorrow. And it is a business, Anup. I think like any other business, it's huge business. People are investing money in you. So they will see कि भाई हमें क्या सही लगता है, और नई लड़की का आपको क्या पता कि ये talented है, ये अच्छी है कि नहीं, वो तो trial and error ही होगा. So बहुत rejections होती थी. मैंने एक बार 22 ऑफिसेज में गई और 22 फिल्मों के लिए मुझे छोटे छोटे साइनिंग अमाउंट्स मिले, और मैंने अपनी माँ को फ़ोन किया, मॉम आई हैव साइंड 22 फिल्म्स, सो वी मेड द राइट डिसीजन. उनमें से एक भी फिल्म शुरू नहीं हुई, 2 शुरू हुई जिनमें कोई और लड़की आ गई लास्ट मिनट, एंड आई वॉज हार्ट ब्रोकन. आई सेड नहीं लेना था तो मना कर देते, कि आपने मुझे ऐसा क्यों मतलब ऐसे क्यों बोला. आई थिंक आई बीन लकी दैट आई हैड अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग फैमिली फुटहोल्ड, जहाँ मेरी माँ ने हमेशा ये बोला कि दिस इज़ नॉट द एंड ऑफ द रोड, ये फिल्म नहीं मिलेगी तो लाइफ ख़त्म. मैंने कहा नहीं, लाइफ तो नहीं ख़त्म हो रही. तो शी सेइंग कोई और मौका मिलेगा. आई सेड हाँ मिलेगा. शी सेइंग देन चिल ना यार, तू टीवी देख. एंड आई मस्ट टेल यू दैट आफ्टर मेनी ईयर्स whoever rejected me, if you would want to say that, I have worked with those directors and in much better roles. तो हर चीज़ का वक्त तो होता ही है, डेस्टिनी भी होती है, लेकिन कर्म आपका होता है. आप लगे रहें, काम करते रहें, और कहें उतनी शिद्दत से यूनिवर्स को और ख़ुद को कि भाई आई वांट दैट, एंड इट विल हैपन, एंड इट विल हैपन इन मच फाइनर वेज. सो आई एम ग्लैड व्हेन आई लुक बैक एंड से थैंक यू फॉर द रिजेक्शंस, because it made me stronger. I carved my own niche, and I'm happy. I feel so grateful when people say I want my daughter to be like you. So मुझे लगता है जब मैंने शुरुआत की थी तो मुझे सब कहते थे पता नहीं की करोगी कुड़ी, but it feels nice, and I'm happy that I was allowed to do what I wanted to do. And I can say when I look back, I can say ये ज़िंदगी अच्छी थी, बड़े अच्छा लगा वो करके जो मैं करना चाहती थी.
गुड, यस. हाँ वही है, मतलब आपको अपना काम करते रहना है, बाकी you know, don't depend on your destiny. वो तो अपना destiny को अपना काम करना है, वो कर लेगी. But I have reacted also, not on rejections, but sometimes you feel, there are falls. I'll take a minute and share one incident when I was talking about. So where I went to one director, and the role was very small, and I told the director, I said, I'm looking for something better, where I can showcase my talent, and I have something more to perform. So he just very, एक होता है ना बहुत ही एटीट्यूड के साथ कि अच्छा आप उस तरह के एक्टर हैं जो आप क्वांटिटी में बिलीव करते हैं, क्वालिटी में नहीं बिलीव करते हैं. तो आई वाज रियली हर्ट इन द सेंस कि आपको भी पता है यार इस रोल में कुछ नहीं है, एंड यू आर ट्राइंग टू टेल मी दैट दिस इज अ क्वालिटी रोल. So I told him, I said, if you think this is a quality role, why don't you tell the hero of the film to do this role, and I will play the quantity wala role what hero is doing. And I just got up and left the office. मुझे नहीं पता दोबारा उन्होंने मुझे अभी तक कभी कास्ट नहीं किया है, और करेंगे भी नहीं,
शिद्दत से मांगो, शिद्दत से.
नहीं कोई बात नहीं. Okay, now I want to talk about someone who's very special to both of us. एक ऐसे इंसान है जैसे मुझे लगता है कि कोई ये नहीं कह सकता कि मैं इस आदमी को प्यार नहीं करता हूँ, और वो एक शख्स हैं गुरदास मान साहब. So मेरी जिंदगी में तो मतलब मैं तो उनको मेरे लिए तो जो भी पीर बाबा संत वही हैं. मैं मेरे लिए एक जो इंसानियत की जो एक अगर किसी कोई फेस होता ना इंसानियत का, तो वो मेरे लिए गुरदास मान साहब होते. एंड हाउ आई नो हिम, इट्स बिकॉज ऑफ हर. तो एक पंजाबी फिल्म थी देश होया परदेस, जो बन रही थी, जिसमें दिव्या थी, जूही चावला थे और मान साहब थे। अब बहुत सारे लोगों को नहीं पता, मैं पंजाब में ही पैदा हुआ और मैं पंजाबी अच्छी बोला ना। तो अचानक मुझे कॉल आया कि दिव्या ने मुझे फ़ोन किया कि अनूप तू फ्री है 2 दिन पहले, कि एक 10-12 दिन के लिए। ऐसे क्यों, क्या हुआ है? नहीं, तेरे को एक फ़ोन आएगा एक फिल्म के लिए, अभी हम लोग अभी चंडीगढ़ में हैं, चंडीगढ़ में शूटिंग करनी है। सो ऐसे परसों शूटिंग है यार, और मतलब कैसे? इसी से, नहीं तू बता तू फ्री है कि नहीं? ऐसे हाँ मैं फ्री हूँ। देन मान साहब्स वाइफ मंजीत जी कॉल्ड मी एंड शी टोल्ड मी द रोल। आई सेड नहीं, मैं आ रहा हूँ, पक्का आ रहा हूँ। बट व्हाट आई एम कमिंग टू इज कि आप एक फिल्म में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल, एक्चुअली कोई और एक्टर वो रोल करने वाला था, उनका एक शूटिंग के टाइम पे एक्सीडेंट हो गया और लास्ट मोमेंट पे एक्टर चेंज करना पड़ा। दिव्या सजेस्टेड माय नेम एंड इट वाज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल इन द फिल्म। पर व्हाट आई एम कमिंग टू इज कि मैं जब चंडीगढ़ पहुंचा, मुझे सीधा होटल में सामान रख के लोकेशन पे जाना था, तैयार होके, जिसमें यू नो आई हैड टू वेयर अ बियर्ड ऑल्सो। तब बियर्ड नहीं थी मेरी, उस रोल के लिए चाहिए थी। और डायरेक्टर जो है मुझसे पहली बार जिंदगी में मिल रहे थे। एंड आई वाज वंडरिंग, आई सेड यार इन्होंने मेरा पता नहीं काम देखा है नहीं देखा है, और इस रोल के लिए मैं उनके हिसाब से फिट होता है नहीं आता हूँ, कभी मिले भी नहीं है। पर इट वाज हर वर्ड। दिव्या ने ये कहा कि अनूप कर सकता है, ये इट सेज अ लॉट अबाउट यू नो हाउ मान साहब्स फैमिली एंड द डायरेक्टर मंजीत जी, एवरीवन बिलीव्स हर वर्ड एंड हर बिलीफ अबाउट मी एज एन एक्टर कि हाँ अनूप कर लेगा, मैं, मेरा डिसीजन गलत नहीं होगा, मैं एम्बैरस नहीं होंगी। तो ये जो डायलॉग था ना, मैंने जो कहा था, गुड्डी जी की हाल चाल ने, आई वॉज अ बैड गाय इन दैट फिल्म एंड आई यूज टू treat her very badly in that film. So her name was Goody in that. So अब दिव्या तुम बताओ यार, because I'm sure you have a lot to talk about Mansa.
How do I start when you begin with somebody? And after Train to Pakistan, which again I think I happened to get to know Khushwant ji very well in that film. Khushwant ji ke saath बैठ के, in fact he was the one who introduced me to the world of Amrita Pritam, who I think is for me the ultimate. And फिर उनके घर गई थी, he invited me, and then his sense of humor, I think I've been very fortunate that I got to spend a lot of time with Khushwant ji on that film. So that was my first, and then thanks to this film Train to Pakistan, I got Shaheed-e-Mohabbat, because Manjeet ji said, "Oh kudi kedi hai jehdi Train to Pakistan che onu lena," and this was an Indo-Pak love story. And my mother was तो मतलब एकदम on sky, एकदम 7वें आसमान पे जब बोलते हैं, because पंजाब में पहले जब I used to be trying to get movies, everyone used to ask, हाँ जी की कर दी कुड़ी तुहाडी आजकल केड़ी फिल्म है? आज मम्मी अगर कुछ बोलती थी, हाँ ये वाली फिल्म कर रही है, अच्छा असी तो सुनिया भी नहीं। So she would feel कि अच्छा मेरी बच्ची का भी टाइम आएगा। तो वो चीज़ उस एक फिल्म से बहुत वैलिडेट हुई कि गुरदास मान के साथ दिव्या एक फिल्म कर रही है। और मान साहब और मंजीत जी दोनों के साथ आई थिंक समटाइम्स इट जस्ट बिकम्स फैमिली फॉर यू। मेरी पंजाबी इन्नी वधिया जड़ी हुई है वो थैंक्स टू मान साहब हुई है। मैं इत्थे लुधियाने तो पंजाबी इन्नी आउंदी होई नहीं सी मैनू, उत्थे जाके बोलना शुरू किया एंड माई पंजाबी स्किल्स जस्ट गॉट रियली ब्यूटिफुल। व्हाट आई लर्नड फ्रॉम मान साहब वाज humility, and it's also in one of my chapters where I was rehearsing my lines and a guy came and he said, "Ma'am, can I have your autograph?" I said, "Please यार थोड़ा ना बाद में आना, मैं lines कर रही हूँ, बड़ा मुश्किल scene है." And I saw these 3-4 boys standing there very disappointed, and थोड़ी देर में शोर सुना तो I just looked up and Mansa was not just signing autographs for them, clicking pictures with them and everything. So I just went, I said, मान साहब हमारा इतना मुश्किल सीन है, आप मतलब आप उनको इंडल्ज कर रहे हो। He says, इना करके तैसी बने हैं, ते इना नु किवें ना टाइम दइए। That thing didn't leave me at all. उस दिन के बाद से आज तक I will drop everything and I will first click a picture with whoever says and I love you. And that also I must thank this lovely audience. मैं कल से यहाँ पर हूँ, but आप लोगों ने जो मुझे प्यार आते जाते दिया है, जो blessings दिए हैं, I can just not be enough. I can't say I'm grateful, but I'm somewhere else. Shukriya. Thank you.
Okay. चलो अभी बुक की तो बहुत सारी बातें होंगी. I'm sure people will read rest of the chapters in the book. But I just want to talk about, as an actor, you've been working for so many years. And with the changing time, the content of cinema has changed. There are other mediums also, OTT, television, films, small budgeted films. और सबसे important कहानियाँ बदली हैं. And you know, when the content changes, as an actor, I think somewhere we also need to change and be true to that content. Because मेरा ऐसा मानना है as an actor कि स्क्रिप्ट जो है वो आपको बताती है कि किस तरह की एक्टिंग रिक्वायर्ड है उस स्क्रिप्ट के. व्हाट इज द स्क्रिप्ट डिमांडिंग फ्रॉम यू एज एन एक्टर. सो जब कंटेंट चेंज होता है, जबान चेंज होती है स्क्रिप्ट की, जो कि हुई है पिछले काफ़ी सालों में ओटीटी की वजह से भी, और बहुत सारी जो डिफरेंट तरह की फिल्में बनने लगी हैं. स्पेशली द फिल्म्स हैव बीन सेट इन स्मॉल टाउन्स आल्सो नाउ, इंडियाज हिंदी हार्टलैंड. हाउ डिड यू चूज योर रोल, या आपने अपने आप को कैसे प्रिपेयर किया कि अरे यार अब एक फाइन ट्यूनिंग होती है ना एक्टर की, कि जैसे मैंने एक फिल्म की थी बहुत ही हार्डकोर कमर्शियल फिल्म, तो मैं पहले दिन जब शूट पे गया तो सीन किया तो डायरेक्टर ने मेरे कान में आके बोला, अनूप ये जो आपने अभी डायलॉग बोला ना, मुझे इसका 200% चाहिए लाउड, आप बहुत ज़्यादा सटल कर रहे हो. तो आपको फाइन ट्यून करना पड़ता है कि नहीं भाई ये फिल्म में ये वाली एक्टिंग नहीं चलेगी, आपको 200% ज़्यादा करना है. So how did you work on yourself, or how did you choose your role कि ये वाला रोल मुझे करना चाहिए?
मैं थोड़ी जिद्दी हूँ इस मामले में अनूप. अगर मुझे कोई कहता है 200 ऊपर करो तो ऐसे यहाँ बैठ नहीं रहा है. Because I think I'm lucky that way also in a way कि जो directors हैं वो उनसे पहले ही we talk a lot. I'm sure you have done that too many times. कि भाई ऐसा करें तो चलेगा क्या? I remember one of the films I was doing like that where the director said go 3 notches up. और मेरे एक डायरेक्टर दोस्त हैं जिनसे मैं हमेशा सुर पूछती हूँ कि ये सुर सही लग रहा है क्या, जो राम सिंह चार्ली के जो मेरे डायरेक्टर हैं. तो उनको मैंने फ़ोन लगाया, ऐसे मुझे ये डायरेक्टर कह रहे हैं कि लाउड करो, मेरा मन नहीं कर रहा. तो ही सिंग सुनाओ, डायलॉग सुनाओ. एंड आई सेड, ही सेज नो यू आर राइट. सो आई सेड अब मैं हैंडल कैसे करूं, अब ये तो हैंडलिंग की बात है, फिर वहाँ लड़कियों का चाम भी आ जाता है. आई सेड सर मैं इसको डबिंग में ठीक कर दूंगी, मुझे अभी आप ऐसा कर लेने दीजिए. ही सेज ओके ओके डू हाउ यू लाइक. बट व्हेन ही सॉ इट ऑन द स्क्रीन he says no, you were right, we don't need it that loud. So as about the choice of the films you're talking about, हम सब की एक गट फीलिंग होती है, हम सब एक्टर्स हैं, हमें पता है कि मन को क्या अच्छा लगेगा. I would still want to be very nervous, I would still want my heart going a flutter and saying this role. This year I think it's been beautiful. I had this Punjabi film called Ma. I wasn't doing it earlier. So Gippy, he personally flew down to say कि भाई करो, and I was like मैं इसको मना क्यों कर रही हूँ, just because I'm scared कि मैं 65 की उम्र कैसे करूँगी. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing that film. And then came Dhakad, where I was the antagonist of the film. And I think the surprise element for me was that इतना negative role मैंने किया कैसे, with a gap of I think 2 weeks दोनों फिल्में आई. फिर मैंने एक फिल्म की शीर कोरमा जो कि LGBTQ पर है, और अब नज़रअंदाज आ रही है जिसमें राजेश्वरी भी मेरे साथ हैं. तो कहना ये चाह रही हूँ कि जब आप शीशे में देखें और आपको एक मुख्तलिफ चेहरा नज़र आए, एक अलग छवि नज़र आए, और आपको लगे कि यार आज थोड़ा नर्वस होंगे, आज थोड़ा मज़ा आएगा, आज डायरेक्टर पता नहीं क्या बोलेगा. सो यू लुक डिफरेंट, यू फील डिफरेंट, यू रीडिस्कवर योर सेल्फ. वी लिव इन अ हाईली कंपेटिटिव वर्ल्ड. इफ़ यू हैव टू बी रेलिवेंट, you have to live up with the times. You have to keep changing. You have to keep evolving and keep being nervous. If the day I say यार मुझे सब आता है ना, उस दिन मेरा करियर खत्म. And that shows, हमारा कैमरा बहुत कैच करता है. So it starts showing on the face that this actor is overconfident. तो वो ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं होना चाहिए हमें. आई थिंक उन किरदारों को खुद को सौंप देना चाहिए और वो आप करते रहो. सो आई थिंक दैट्स द बेस्ट मंत्रा.
Yeah, and we all have seen varied roles done by Divya. लेकिन मैं Divya is one actor, you know, actors के बारे में हमेशा ये कहा जाता है कि उनको उनसे उम्र मत पूछो और उनसे ये मत कहो कि भैया अब मैं थोड़े से आप एजेड लगने लगे हैं, और वो अपने आप को कोशिश करते रहते हैं छुपाने की.
ये सवाल उनको पसंद ही नहीं आया है.
अच्छा सवाल नहीं मैं एक सवाल मेरा ये था सवाल ये था कि दिव्या यू हैव प्लेड मदर्स रोल ऑल्सो, जबकि कई ऐसी टाइम था जब आपको लगता होगा कि यार नहीं यार मैं अभी तो इतनी बड़ी नहीं हुई हूँ कि मैं एक टीनेजर लड़की की माँ का रोल कर लूँ, बट यू हैव ऑलवेज गॉन विद द रोल. बट कभी डर नहीं लगा यार मैं टाइपकास्ट हो जाऊंगी, विच इज वेरी कॉमन इन आवर फिल्म इंडस्ट्री?
I found my mantra. If I'm playing a mother, the next one I'll be romancing the hero. And if I've romanced the hero, I will be a sister in the next film. So it's nice to keep surprising yourself and hence surprising the audience. And I love that when my audience tells me, we go to watch a film because you're there, because we don't know what to expect. So I love that. And I think that is great. Unexpected जो चीज़ें होती हैं वो बहुत खूबसूरत होती हैं. और impromptu जो हम चीज़ें करते हैं, that's the best.
No, I completely agree, you know. इसलिए मैंने भी कभी कोई रोल इस वजह से मना नहीं किया कि अरे आपकी बेटी है 20 साल की 18 साल की, ऐसे ठीक है यार कोई बात नहीं, रोल अच्छा होना चाहिए, that's more important. Okay, ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਥੋੜੀ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ, you know, ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਕਾਸਟ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਫਿਲਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਕੱਠੇ. जी, तो यू हैव बीन वेरी क्लोज टू योर मदर. मैं चाहता हूँ कि मैं भी आंटी से बहुत क्लोजली मिलता रहा हूँ, उनके बनाए हुए खाने बहुत खाए हैं. एंड हर मदर वॉज ऑल्सो वेरी गुड राइटर, बहुत अच्छी पोइट्री लिखती थी. तो बिफोर वी गो फॉर द क्वेश्चंस, आई जस्ट वांट कि अगर कोई भी आंटी की कोई छोटी सी पोइट्री आप पढ़ना चाहो तो सुना दो, लोगों को मज़ा आ जाएगा.
जैसा मैंने अभी कहा कि एवरीवन यूज्ड टू आस्क माय मदर कि कौन सी फिल्म आ रही है आपकी बच्ची की. So she used to write poems for me and send it to me in Bombay to encourage me. So one such was called Akhbar, and I'll just read that out to you. आज फिर अखबार आया है, रोज की तरह झट से उठाया, देखा और फेंक दिया. कोई तेरी खबर हो तो पढूं, कोई तेरी तस्वीर हो तो देखूं, वरना अखबार के इन अक्षरों में मेरे लिए क्या रखा है. मेरे लिए दुनिया की खबर तुम्ही से है. तुम हो इन अक्षरों में तो खबरें हैं, तुम हो इस दुनिया में तो दुनिया है. तुम्हारे सिवा कोई और खबर मैं क्या समझूं, तुम्हारे सिवा कोई और तस्वीर मैं क्या देखूं. आज फिर अखबार आया है, मेरी दुनिया से दूर बेकार की खबर लाया है. कभी तो तेरी तस्वीर यहाँ आएगी, कभी तो तेरी खबर भी आएगी. कभी तो फिजाएं इस ओर बढ़ेंगी, हर एक अखबार में तेरी खबर छपेगी. पर अभी इन खबरों का क्या करूं जिसमें तेरी कोई बात नहीं. एक आस है बहुत दूर कहीं, एक ख्वाब है बहुत दूर कहीं, एक वायदा है बहुत दूर कहीं, एक इरादा है बहुत दूर कहीं. आज फिर अखबार छप के आया है, कल भी अखबार छप के आएगा. मेरी उम्मीदों के सुनहरे सपने हर पन्ने पे छप जाएंगे. तेरी खबर लेकर तेरी तस्वीर सजाएंगे. वो कल अब और दूर नहीं, वो कल कभी तो आएगा, कल फिर अखबार आएगा.
क्या बात है, बहुत खूबसूरत. So do we have the time to take one or two questions? Can we take? So we'll just combine the questions and then we'll ask Divya once only. तो बताइए. Anybody would like to ask? मुझे लगता है सब तुमसे पर्सनली बात करने वाले हैं ना.
Yes, ma'am.
Very simple stereotype question, but you want to play any particular role? I won't say which has already been played, but you have some type of character in mind.
Amrita Preetham.
Oh.
Very clear. Very clear. और यहाँ पे ही उसका बीज, all of you all are, I must say, you know, the reason this thought came to me because last time when we were celebrating Amrita Preetham, I had read a few poems and यहाँ पर खड़े होके मुझे बहुत लोगों ने कहा था जब भी कोई ऐसी फिल्म बने तुम कर जरूर लेना. So yes, that one.
Okay जी.
Yes sir. जी. जी. मैं तेनू फिर मिलांगी. I don't know if we have time.
चलो जल्दी से, पूरा मत सुनाओ, थोड़ा सा सुना दो.
She's reading poetry. Somebody asked some poetry. No, let her finish. Excuse me, can I ask my question before you read the poem?
Yes,
Gigi,
please ask.
Yeah. Okay, I want to know which is your favorite role that you've played so far?
Ma'am, it's very subjective sometimes. I love it when all of you come and tell me, सुनिए मुझे आपकी वो जिंदगी in shorts में आपका वो role बहुत अच्छा लगा. Somebody will come and say, वीर ज़ारा बहुत अच्छी लगी. Somebody will say, भाग मिल्खा भाग बहुत अच्छी लगी.
Yours.
That is what I'm saying. What happens is for us as actors, it's always the journey that you have during the films. For me, some of my most beautiful journeys have been with Sham Benegal, with Gurdas Man, and with Rakesh Mehra, and of course, I mean, so these films I can't say ek film because ये journeys मैं भूल ही नहीं सकती. जी.
Thank you.
Thank you.
मिल गई?
मिल गई. मैं तेनू फेर मिलांगी. किथे, किस तरह, पता नहीं. शायद तेरे तखयल दी चिनक बन के तेरे कैनवस दे उतरांगी. या खोरे तेरे कैनवस दे उत्ते एक रहस्यमय लकीर बन के खामोश तेनू तकती रहांगी. या खोरे सूरज दी लू बन के तेरे रंगां विच घुलांगी. या रंगां दियां बावां विच बह के तेरे कैनवस नू वल्लांगी. पता नहीं किस तरह किथे पर तेनू फिर मिलांगी.
फिर मिलांगी. मैं तेनू फिर मिलांगी. Thank you so much, Divya. I'm sure everybody enjoyed and they're going to read this book also. So before I end this session, I'll say it again जो मैंने beginning में कहा था. जब आप होते हैं तब आप सबसे ज़्यादा खूबसूरत होते हैं.
शुक्रिया अनूप. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I think that those two people, would you want to talk personally or do we have one question?
I think we're already running into. So,
Sorry sir, आप दिव्या से पूछ लेना अकेले में.
मैंने पता नहीं सी कि तुसी आसो पर तुसा नु वेख के मैं पक्का यकीन है कि तुसी ज़ारा नु ले जासो.
Thank you everyone.
अच्छा मैं जुलिया. Thank you.
thank you so much,
Thank
Divya
you.
and Anup.
Thank you.
Yeah. We would like to invite Bachi and Shazia Ilmi on the stage, please. A village boy turns millionaire. An army captain becomes a toast of the town. A story of two men who turned hotels into India's only world-class industry. We have the eternal Bachi speaking with Shazia Ilmi on Dare to Change.
Thank you so much. Bachi, it's difficult to introduce you, and Bachi is one of those जो कहा जाता है ना, बहुत सुना होगा आपने कि किसी तारुफ की मोहताज वाकई में नहीं है. The greatest thing about Bachi, before I talk about the book she's written, the biography of Captain Nair, is that I'm personally a huge fan of hers. Somebody who's been in journalism and who's been an activist and then in active politics. You know, I have been following her writings, as I'm sure all of you do, and I think this is one of the fewest journalists that we have today who really have their loyalty to the viewer, to the reader, and don't follow an agenda. The purity with which and the ethics with which you pursued your career, and it's really commendable. So a huge round of applause for Bachi. And one man in his time plays many parts. We are talking about Captain Nair. And Bachi has written this great book with great research, painstakingly collected though. And Bachi, why don't you start with your introduction?
Well, actually, we followed a professional star, so it's always difficult to follow an actor. But let me tell you, this is really a man who played all these parts in real life. So this short introduction, those who live till the age of 92 often have a ringside seat on history. Some even manage a role in shaping some of the drama that unfolds. But there are a few who dare to divide their world into several stages and stride across each of them with a performance to remember. Captain C.P. Krishnan Nair was one such serial player. Leftist and capitalist, freedom fighter, rationing overseer, soldier, promoter of humble handloom and manufacturer of Scottish lace. Finally, and most remarkably, the hotelier who redefined luxury. The child who could only get rice gruel for breakfast went on to dine with emperors.
Fabulous. Bachchi, I was reading the book and you set the stage, and we actually go to Kannur where everything is red, ideologically and otherwise. For me, it was difficult to comprehend and put together these two pictures. A boy, a Vanya boy in Kannur, born to such humble, modest origins, born to that family. And then he goes to create these symbols of luxury, like of that kind, opulence, where it shows, and it is larger than life. It's difficult to put these two images together. Like you said, he straddled these two worlds so beautifully, a leftist to an avowed capitalist, and he chose to dream. And this is exactly what you write about M.S. Oberoi.
Correct.
In that famous biography. So there is certain audacity in their entire ability to dream and dream big and get over even themselves and their own conditioning to reach there, and that also in a socialist era, so to speak.
Yes, yes. Okay. So these two biographies I've written 20 years apart, 1992, M.S. Oberoi, Rai Bahadur, called Dare to Dream, and this thing called Capture the Dream, totally by chance, similar sounding headlines, but really true about both these people. So Rai Bahadur, M.S. Oberoi, born in this tiny, obscure hamlet called Bhaun, and then goes on to build hotels all over the world. Captain Nair, born to a really low-class Vanya family in Kannur. His mother is just a person who sells copra, and this little boy helps her. And then she uses her network to put him into a school. So shall I tell them the story of how the school? Yeah, because that really also his first act of audacity.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. So this boy has got into school, and this is a school run by the local Raja, the Chirakkal Vanya Raja, Valia Raja. And so the first day, the first year, in the annual day, the Raja himself comes, he's the chief guest. And this little Kannur boy who's sort of never really stepped out of his hamlet sees this apparition who really looks like a character from Mahabharata who's come down. And he's bedazzled by what he looks like, the kind of speech that the Raja gives. So once the Raja goes back to his seat, this little boy, kind of just propelled by an inner force, goes up, to the stage and starts reciting this paean of praise, which is a little over the top, but the Raja is very chuffed by all the flattery that happens. And he says, "Oh, really? I will pay for this boy's education till the end of the time that he wants to study." So imagine how this little Vanya boy who could not even have dreamt of going to school but that's not the end of the story, because he says, okay, I'll pay for his education till as long as he wants to study. So he finishes school and then he wants to go to college. So then he goes back to the Raja, and then the Raja sees him enter, and the Raja kind of looks a bit awkward because the Raja has himself fallen on a few hard times, and little Krishnan Nair realizes, something's going wrong here. But he still says, "Sir, now I want to go to college." The Raja's word is the Raja's word, right? It's wrought in stone. So he says, "That's okay. I'm not very, I'm not like I was when I gave you the promise, but my word is the word. So here is my diamond ring." take it to Bapalal, the jeweler in Madras, and it will finance your education, your college education. So the Raja actually takes off his diamond ring, and then he goes to Bapalal, the jeweler, who's a very sort of snooty jeweler, doesn't buy, second-hand jewelry. But when he hears the story and he says, Chirakkal Walia Raja gave it, then I have to honor it. And that is how the boy manages a college education.
So destiny had a lot to do with both the hoteliers. If you look at Mr. Oberoi and if you look at Captain Nair, and they kind of defied their destinies and where they came from. There was a certain defiance.
Right, because I don't think, I think these are men who really carve their own destiny.
Yes.
And I think ultimately that is what you have to do. You can't sit back and say, ye to mera karm hai, main kya karu. You can't. You have to grab destiny by the forelock, just as you have to grab opportunity by the forelock. And that's what both these men did. Like you look at, I remember Rai Bahadur, I used to tell him, I said, Rai Bahadur, you had a lot of luck. He said, excuse me, I didn't have a lot of luck. I made my own luck. And when you think about it, Shazia, I kind of realized this about Rai Bahadur, that all his fortunes were actually made on other people's misfortune. And not in a way that he exploited it, in a bad way. For instance, his father kind of died of cholera when he had gone to lay these railway lines. And so that's what made his mother, she could not take the taunts of her in-law home. And so she walked those miles back to her father's home. And that the father used to be a money lender in Punjab. And that is how, he got into the contact of all the rich fiefdoms of of Punjab. And so when he needed to bankroll his first hotel, he could go to them and ask for the money. In Calcutta, the Grand Hotel, that had been under a cloud because it had, had a big bout of cholera and epidemic. So the great, fantastic, Grand Hotel of Calcutta had lain under, covered with bed sheets, if you like. And Rai Bahadur is on his way back to Simla.
Yeah.
And he suddenly, a friend says, that hotel in Calcutta, it's up for sale. So he just changes his platform, takes a train, and goes to Calcutta and negotiates and to the Stephen Aratoon, who's the owner, and says, I'll buy this for this much. So then Stephen Aratoon tells him, but then what about goodwill? Because Stephen Aratoon is an Armenian, but paise banane wala. So he said, what do you mean goodwill? This hotel has got bad will, so you give me some money back. Then he builds this Bombay hotel, which he's put everything into, and he's paid this ridiculous amount of money for the land, which is still under the sea. It is yet to be reclaimed. Then, because he wants to build the tallest building, he has to make, window panes which withstand all those winds. He has to dig much deeper into the foundation because it is reclaimed land, and the sea is willing and always ready to reclaim it back. Yes. And after having spent these absurd amount, especially on the land, which is exactly what also happened to Captain Nair, because he had paid this ridiculous amount for the land in Delhi. And so this hotel, which, with Grand Hotel, he has made this so much money that he has to stuff it into mattresses because at night, he can't count it. There's no time.
Wow.
And he's really, so that is why he could pay for all these hotels. And now Bombay is turning the cash cow into the white elephant, right? Sure. But then the Beirut War happens. And the Beirut War then directs all the Arab people who used to go to Beirut for their nightlife, they come to Bombay. And not only that, the monsoon was the season when hoteliers swat flies, okay? But now the monsoon has become the star season because the Arabs can't have enough of the rain that is pouring down, and his hotel is right on the sea, so there are all these Arabs flocking to his hotel.
So every adversity became a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Coming to Captain Nair, who's really the captain of his fate, really, and the way he turned it around, his own destiny. You mentioned Madhavi Amma, his mother.
Yes.
So two women, his mother, Madhvi Amma, and of course his wife, Leela, they played such a huge role in his life. And when I read about the chapter on prawn pickle password, I think, so can you please link the dots between prawn pickle password and the Leela Hotel?
All right. Well, let me just quickly tell you this, that both Rai Bahadur and Captain Nair, their mothers and their wives, played a great role in their life. Of course, Captain Nair was also a great ladies' man, okay? But Rai Bahadur, did have, let us say, informal mistresses, right? Nirlep Kaur, the love of his life, And I remember someone telling me, well, he didn't actually, marry her. So I said, no. So he said, so then she was non-stick Nirlep. But anyway, so to come back to...
Bachchi has to be Bachchi,
To Captain Nair. So, now his mother, she's this, this humble Kannur lady. But I think, she does understand the power of network, right? And, I mean, maybe it was subconscious, but, Captain Nair, he's not yet Captain Nair. Well, yes, he is Captain Nair. He's gone to Abbottabad and then Delhi to join the army. And she says, my son must be so homesick for Kannur. And VP Menon, who's like one of the most powerful men of the time, he was the right-hand man of Sardar Patel. So he has, worked with 3 viceroys. He knows all the Maharajas who has brought to the negotiating table. So, but VP Nair's second wife, who is a very formidable woman, and like a lot of Nair women. And so the mother says, please will you take this prawn pickle, for my son. So this madam, and then she takes the sense to give her...
And Captain was a radio officer. I mean, he was in the army.
Officer in Abbottabad.
In Abbottabad.
Yeah. And so she says, no, but by now he's come to Delhi. Okay, so that means VP Menon is right there. So then she said, will you give it to him? So she takes and she summons this young man, and the young man is sort of goes there, sees all these British officers, VP Menon's great house, and then he, gives the prawn pickle to the wife. I mean, the wife gives him the prawn pickle, and he's about to leave, but just then VP Menon's Rolls Royce rolls up. And then he says, no, you have to come in and you have to have lunch with us. And so VP Menon becomes the greatest patron, the door opener, if you like, so I think we'd love to say the story of the lace at this point.
Yes, no, definitely. So, so it was like Leela proposed and Captain disposed. It was so, that love story is so beautiful. So what was the fascination with lace and the need for Captain Nair to go all the way to Scotland, and a man who's working with handlooms? So, and again, 2 very different images. You see handlooms and then lace. Again, and this is a man who does it all so well with so much elan.
Yeah.
So what's with that?
Well, okay, so now we talk about Leela Nair. So Leela Nair was actually, didn't come from such a humble background. Her father was like really a leading figure of Kannur. He had set up the commerce, what do you call it, Chamber of Commerce over there, etc. And he sees this really self-assured girl, and then finally, and he sees her as a schoolgirl. But ultimately, afterwards, he proposes to her, and Leela is quite happy to be with him. And really, every step that he has taken, it is with Leela's prompting, except in reverse when he leaves the army, because she's just a young bride. She has come to Bombay and is working as the ADC to General Brar. And Leela looks at this thing and she says, you better leave this army, because you're not going to spend the rest of your life saluting to orphans all and sundry. So Captain Nair leaves the thing and he goes off and, does his own textile thing. Then Madam Leela sees lace. She just sees it. And she says, we must manufacture lace. Now, this Captain Nair has lived in Kannur. He's not have any clue about what lace is about. Yes, the nuns used to make lace in Kerala, but he's gone nowhere near the nuns making lace.
Yes.
But when Leela has a will, then Captain Nair has to find a way, right? So then he says, then B.P. Menon enters the stage and says, look, the only way to make lace is to import the looms which are only made in Scotland. So you better go and buy them there. But don't worry, I mean, I'll see that things happen. So fine, so Captain Nair and Leela Nair go there. They go to this manufacturer of these fancy lace looms, right? They're really big looms, and they take like 7 people to operate. And he goes up to Mr. Lawrence Mitchell and says, I'd like to buy your lace looms. So this British gentleman looks at him and says, but sir, I don't know you. How can I sell my looms to you? And who are you? So he says, well, maybe if you lend me may I borrow your phone and may I make a phone call? Maybe the person, who will speak to you might, tell you about my credentials. So he dials a number and hands the phone back to Lawrence Mitchell. And guess who is at the other end of the line? Lord Louis Mountbatten himself. So V.P. Menon has kind of said, look, this guy, my protege, is coming, and he's already met him. And poor Lawrence Mitchell, falls back and says, oh, yes, sir, please, certainly, here are the looms. And that is how he ends up making lace.
Fabulous, yeah.
This is really the wonderful thing about this book, about Rai Bahadur's book. It's just these stories, about their life, which kind of illustrate their audacity. It's, what the Hebrew word is chutzpah. And it's really this word that they all have. Rai Bahadur, thinks nothing of going up to the Quartermaster General and, while World War II has happened, and said, let me billet your soldiers. Whatever you're paying for them, I will charge 25 paise less. So Quartermaster General says, fine. And he has the sense to take along his British general manager. Because Punjabi hai, lekin knows कि ये अंग्रेज साथ में आएगा तो फिर बात बन जाएगी.
काम हो जाएगा.
And so then he does that. And that's where he makes this money. Because, all the soldiers are passing through to the Burma front. And the soldiers are passing, and every night the soldiernies are spending nights with the soldiers. And the morning, the captain, Rai Bahadur and his wife do the head count. Okay, these are the soldiers and these are the women who they've slept it, and where's the cash? And that's how he gets all that money. Even Captain Nair, at 65, when he's already been this success, he's been the biggest exporter of ready-mades to America. Liz Claiborne, Gloria Vanderbilt, Tommy Hilfiger, you just name it. And he is supplying to all these labels. And at 65, he decides to set up hotels. And that too, he's taking on he's this Johnny-come-lately, really. And he's taking on the aristocrats of the industry, the Oberoi and the Taj. Not only that, when he builds in Bangalore, he builds a hotel with more rooms than the 2 hotels, combined together. And I remember this man who was at that time at Oberoi, and he says, someone down the road has gone mad. What is he doing with this hotel?
Yeah, it takes a certain insanity to think like that and make it happen. I met Captain Nair. This is, of course, he was at the Leela, and I had just checked in, and he was very abrupt in the way he spoke, and there was something the assurance of a self-made man, and he was very proud of it. You see, so he just met me and says, I see you, Anna Hazare movement. And he says, I see you. And he just said, have you eaten? He was just one of those people who would and then the fascination with flowers, that in the middle of the night, he would be looking at, tending to all the flower decorations at the Leela, and I was fascinated. So we spoke about Anna Hazare and the movement and the need for it, and flowers, and how he got them, where they got them from. So that meticulousness, and that it comes, and only, you have to be insane to some degree to be able to achieve it and make it happen day after day and create all these great careers for yourself and excel and actually crack it. You know, literally, because you kept cracking it. So I want to ask you, what is it, first of all, what propelled you to write the book? And what is it about him which is the most amazing quality of Captain Nair? And of course, I mentioned politics because I had just given up my career to be part of Anna Hazare movement.
You did mention what was, whether by design or not.
We'll talk about politics later.
Not politics. I'm saying the fact that what was really his unique signature on the hospitality landscape were his gardens. But if you want, I will give you this inside story.
Yes.
And I please do not take away from the fact that I did this book in 7 months. That please do not take away from the fact that there is not enough research in it. All right?
Yes.
So this thing is that the family came to me a day before the second lockdown and said, please salvage this book. It's going to be our father's birth centenary in February. This is March now, because the person who was commissioned to do the book was with Captain Nair, you know, for years before he died. Captain Nair has died in 2014, but this man has not delivered anything, you know, on this book. So I said, well, you know, I really, you know, don't want to do it. Though the person who came to me was Rajiv Kaul, who had kind of been at the Oberoi at that time. And he said that, look, you know, I told the Nairs that if anyone will do this book and do it justice in this much time, please let's persuade her. So he came with an AV done by Vijay Amritraj. Now, Vijay Amritraj was his great friend. This is a lovely thing about Captain Nair, was he was age neutral. You know, from his grandchildren to people, you know, 10 years, 20, 30 years younger, you know, it made no difference. So I looked at that AV, and it wasn't about the hotels. I mean, I've written about Oberoi. Who's going to match that, right? I've written about Fleury's. Who's going to match that? And so I said, no, no, not another hotelier. But then in this AV, Vijay Amritraj talks about his textile days. And he says he's the one who promoted bleeding Madras to the West. Now, I know that a lot of people here are more or less my generation, and this fabric, bleeding Madras, was the cult fabric of our youth. So I said, oh my God, this man promoted bleeding Madras. And so I said, I'm going to do this book. And then as the stories unfolded, of course, it became into a fabulous... So can I just say a little bit about bleeding Madras?
Yes,
if
you insist.
Yeah, so, you know, a guy, Jacobson, he's this big textile importer, and he comes to the textile commissioner in India, Mr. Swaminathan, and says, you know, I want to buy a whole lot of handloom. So Swaminathan puts him on to Captain Nair. Captain Nair, and so Jacobson says, give me a fabric that's unique and nobody really knows about. So Captain Nair thinks about this fabric that has been worn by the Kalahasti women of Madras, and it's sort of done with all these vegetable dyes, and those dyes are fixed with gingerly oil, mustard oil, which is why it's got this strange, you know, smell. But the thing about it is that with each wash, you get a different fabric because the colors bleed. So when those colors bleed, I mean, what may start as a red and yellow check ends up as a yellow-red check and with green tinges to it. So anyway, he buys this, and Jacobson takes it back, and Brooks Brothers is fascinated much about networking. He had his, well, he had his finger in every pie, literally as well, into every appam and into every stew and every pie that you can think of. But yes, his early influences were extremely political. So even as a college student, he came under the influence of A.K. Gopalan, this great communist leader. And A.K. Gopalan also immediately spotted this boy with this, you know, reassurance and made him the leader, the student leader of the college. And so with A.K. Gopalan took him to the 1938 Congress session in Haripur. And there he kind of saw Netaji Subhash Bose. And he was like really fascinated by him. And then there was this little side story, which is in his autobiography.
Yes, I read that.
Malayalam autobiography, from which I got a lot of the early part, right? Because, I mean, but let me tell you again that a man as vain a man as Captain Nair writes his own autobiography, which no publisher is going to question. And so you have to question every single line. So you have to really check out every single timeline and everything. So anyway,
about Subhash Chandra
yeah,
Bose
so
and the little
Subhash Chandra
story.
Bose. So in this, he has this story where Subhash Chandra Bose is suddenly racked by fever. And everyone is like really worried, abhi ye kya hone wala hai? He's our great leader. So Captain, well, at that time, Krishnan Nair kind of whispers to A.K. Gopalan that, look, you know, back in Kannur, you know, we have this home remedy that if you take the breast milk of a woman and soak clothes in it and put it on his fevered brow, he will get well. Now, I don't know what the connection is, or whether just the fact of having the breast milk of some Bachchan Nair woman immediately makes the fever flee, but whatever happens, it seems to work. And he's revived, right? But not that at that point, you know, a little Kannur boy or even A.K. Gopalan can go back and say that. But when he goes to Abbottabad, that's where he is this wireless officer. And he then comes into the influence of Khan Abdur Ghaffar Khan. And through that, Sheikh Abdullah. And after that, Farooq Abdullah. And right then to Omar Abdullah. And he really thrills, you know, to the speeches of Netaji from Radio Sholen, which is in Singapore. And he really says that for him, the hero of the freedom struggle was always Netaji.
Yes, tell us more about that. Tell us more about Netaji. What did he take it to a level where he wanted to do more with Netaji or work with him?
No, because you see, Netaji by then was Netaji was by then, you know, in Singapore and, you know, doing his own thing. This guy was here and he was in Abbottabad, and at that time he in fact actually wanted to become a sannyasi, you know, and so then they went to the guy who later became Swami Shivanand, and they both went, they went to this other sannyasi, he and his friend, and that sannyasi kind of saw the friend and said yes, and he later became Swami Shivanand, but he looked at Captain Nair and he said, this man's destiny is not about sitting, you know, in Padmasan on some river, and he says, you will be the Karma Yogi. And that is why he said, please go away. You are not going to, you know, destined to be the sannyasi. So then he went and really then carved the Karma Yogi path.
And he was very much a Karma Yogi. For instance...
Sorry, yeah, having said that, he really did get into a lot of, for instance, the Dalai Lama.
Yeah,
the Dalai Lama and he were the greatest of friends.
Yeah,
the greatest of friends.
I remember that.
They used to have these little jokes between each of them. Oh, I am older, you are older. And he thought nothing. So, okay, Dalai Lama is visiting. Let him open the staff canteen.
Yeah. Dalai Lama was always being brought in to do something or the other, some events.
And his staff said, no, I mean, he's the Dalai Lama, you know. Let us start something else which is worthy of the Dalai Lama opening. And all his disciples would come into the hotel and, you know, squat there, and he'd be very happy. And then, you know, like, the lotus, you know, the Padma, which is in Buddhist philosophy, that was so much part of his decor. And also the Princess of Thailand gave him this rare standing lotus. So his lily pond, you know, in the thing has got these standing lotuses. And when he died, the first time that the Dalai Lama visited, you know, he just went up with this lotus garland, and you could, as Rajiv Kaul said, you could almost see the smile on the portrait of Captain Nair, that his, you know, his old friend has come back with the one tribute that both of them valued so much.
Bachchi, my last question to you, because we'll have to leave some time for questions. Just like you have been, and I'm talking about you, and Bachchi hates that, which is why I'm putting her on the spot. You have defied all the regimes, and your humor you've never broke nonsense from any regimes whatsoever, and you haven't let any of the changing dispensations affect you in any way. And, you know, and you have defied them all. And to retain your humor, your wit, your sharp, caustic glance at things, political view. Captain Nair, and he has spanned, I mean, eras, decades, different things. And he never let any ideology, left or right, come in the way of, I don't want to say his greatness, but what he set out to do. And in a way, he also believed in his own myth, because he kept it going. So the man did believe in his myth, and it's very much part of who he is and what he managed to create.
Yeah, so actually, well, Shazia, you're going into little dangerous territory when you say with every regime, because the current regime, which you are part of, has so increased my bandwidth that it's not funny. But I have used Shazia, who told me, no, it's not really true. So the next time I write something which my editor will not let pass, I am going to tell the editor, please speak to my friend Shazia and then clear it or don't clear it.
Yeah. And we were discussing this, and in fact, yesterday I told you that when I was an anchor with Star, and how I was told also by the then Congress regime not to touch Pratibha Patel's son and various stories. So I have my own stories to share. And I have also, but I'm not talking about my...
Okay, so Captain Nair, like his politics, you know, he was ultimately a businessman. And so all businessmen have to kind of, you know, they have to be politics neutral, because you don't know, one man today is up, the next day he's down, and the one who's down today is going to be up the next day. So they always have their ivory fire. But having said that, Captain Nair was still, you know, there was a lot of genuineness, you know, to his thing. So like the fact that, okay, I never met the man, right? But Shazia, somebody else. I think everyone who I talked to, everyone has met Captain Nair except the person who ultimately ended writing up the book, right?
It's a great book, huh?
Yeah, and in a way I'm glad, because, you know, Captain Nair being Captain Nair, I think that book would not have got written. Because every day he would have come up with a new story, which is exactly what happened with the book that I wrote immediately after, but that's another story. That's for the next Lit Fest. And but he was such a people person, you know, he really did. And his own granddaughter said that, you know, when, like he was involved with everything. So yes, when the hotels were being planned, he was there. When the food was being planned, he was there. But when it came to the marketing, he was right in the center of it. So he, you know, he really did.
Great. We will, who will help us with the questions? Yeah. So, but, well, while we're waiting for them, I think...
No, he's right. Shazia, he's right. You can ask.
No, because there was a lot of applause when she talked about the present regime, and because I have not got a space at all in this entire fest to speak about my experiences as a journalist for many years, so I hope there will be a session to also talk about my side of the story and why I'm part of this regime.
See this politician, how she's pushed in her agenda.
No, this politician did not pursue agenda, but we saw some politicians pursue their agendas by hijacking Kasauli Lit Fest, which, anyway. So, yeah, questions?
Hi, Bachi. Here, right here. Hello.
Yes, yes.
Hi. What is the book that you said you've just written, which is for another Lit Fest? Here.
Okay, so this is a book on the Chawlas, Ravi Chawla of Ravissant. So that's the book. I kind of really began working back to back with this, because the two people who kind of put me into this also, and there are two people I admire a great deal, Rajiv Kaul and Mahmud Khan. They said, here's another man who's as much of a story, you know, so please do this. So it was really terrible, because I'm halfway through Ravi Chawla's book when Captain Nair's book gets published, and then I'm pulled in for the interviews, and like I'm totally disoriented. I said, am I going to suddenly in the middle of Captain Nair, I'm going to start talking about Ravi Chawla, you know. So that was the book.
Any other questions?
Anybody else with the next? No.
Yes.
Thanks, Bachi. What a fun session, really. dying to know more about this man now. Thanks, Shazia, for leading it through. Question is, when are you going to write a book about a powerful woman?
Yeah, it's about time. About a powerful woman.
Powerful
All
women.
these men and
I
the stories,
see.
oh my God.
Oh,
no.
absolutely. Can I start with myself?
Absolutely. Good one. I like that. Yeah.
Why should anyone? Well, I think I'd like to. Well, I think yeah, maybe someone should write it because I think you can get, you can really swing both ways, which are not with that. You can then tend to get carried away, or you can say, oh my God, how can I? And you know, frankly, really, I mean, people do say that. Well, to be very polite about it, that I have straddled. I mean, if I've been 50 years in journalism. You know, and have really been witness to a lot of movements. Maybe not, certainly not politics, but certainly a lot of social movements, feminism. I've written so much on HIV/AIDS. I've written really about media, the things in which where media changed. You know, my grandfather started a paper in Calcutta, a Gujarati English paper in Calcutta in 1917, right? My parents edited that paper. I grew up in the press. So I have been from the time of hand setting, right? My grandfather sets up this Gujarati paper in Calcutta. Who knows the language? He imports from Gujarat, Bombay, all the typesets. He trains Callow, Bihari boys in the language and in hand setting. And then, so I know hand setting. Then I've gone through linotype. Then I've got, that is hot metal. Then I've gone through digital. So really the whole media metamorphosis that has happened. I think if I were to write, that is what I would write about. Because I would never write about my personal life because, you know, I mean, there's a lot of excitement in it, but it might, it would embarrass, it would hurt, and I don't think I'm in that space where I want to hurt people. Truly, I mean, I'm not saying this, but that's not been the kind of journalist I am. I think even my humor has not been malicious ever.
Never, never. Without malice. Without malice.
Without malice.
And
without malice.
Without malice. And it's been a great session. Bachchi, you always inspire. It's wonderful. Your words regale and regenerate always. Thank you so much. I'm dying to read the book, and I hope you do mention emergency.
She's
and
not
what happened
read
at
the
that
book,
time.
okay? She's not read the book.
So we'll know a little bit more about other dispensations and how they treated the press. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bachi and Shazia.
Shazia, take your question. Thank you.
Our second last session today throws light on how the Army takes ecology and conservation with the same seriousness, commitment and work culture as it does the defense of our country. Now we have Colonel Anupam Sharma in conversation with Madhur Singh.
What does linking mean? I'll just okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. As we have been listening to Amitav Ghosh and discussing themes on environment and ecology over the last 2-3 days, the militaries of the world are responsible for consuming a large part of the fossil fuels produced in the world, and also for generating a large percentage of the hazardous waste. As we just heard Ashima announce, the Indian Army claims that it takes environmental security as seriously as the defense of the nation. To explain how, we have two guests here, General K.J. Singh
and Colonel Anupam Sharma, who is the first Colonel Environment at the Army Headquarters.
See, in 2015, over a drink, I told Mr. Rahul Singh and Nilofer that we need to have a session on Kargil campaign. And that is how the idea of Military Lit Fest started. Actually, all these Military Lit Fests which have gone viral is thanks to Khushwant Singh Literary Festival. So put your hands together for that. They've gone viral in places like Chandi Mandir, Chandigarh, Lucknow, Pune. It's happening all over. So similarly, this time when we heard that the theme is ecology, I tried to push the envelope a little further. And I reached out to Nilofer. So Nilofer told me, have you got a book? I said, I asked my army fellows. They said, no, we don't have a book. So again, Nilofer is kind, but I never knew we'll end up in this situation of a filler. So we are in a filler situation, 10 minutes. But allow me to tell you that it is set army thinking on putting together a book. And next time you will have a book also. Army is working on that theme. So we all sit in places like Kasauli, which were chosen by Britishers, salubrious climate. We didn't even need fans in Pune where we trained. But independent India gave us huge big military stations in places like Via Batinda, Hisar, Suratgarh, Jaisalmer. Even Chandi Mandir was rocky. And locals said this is land of Tibbas and Tobas. But army faced up to that challenge. Today I invite you to Chandi Mandir Military, not station, Biodiversity Park. It is like that. So a lot of army stations have won national level awards on this. And Army's joint directive has got this enshrined as a subject. We have a directorate on this. We have ecological task force of 10 of them. So over to my friend Colonel Anupam, who is Colonel Ecological in Army Headquarters, and he'll run through the transformation that Army has tried to attempt. And maybe we needed this session after attack on us in yesterday's session on Blue Star.
Dash Kupa Sama Vapi, Dash Vapi Samo Handra, Dash Handra Samo Putra, Dash Putro Sama Drumu. A pond equals 10 wells, a reservoir equals 10 ponds. A sun equals 10 reservoirs, and tree equals 10 suns. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Colonel Environment of Indian Army, it is a matter of privilege for me to present my organization's initiative towards environment, conservation, and sustainable development. Indian Army's habitat are often referred as lungs of burgeoning and polluted cities. We are synonymous to living in the lap of nature. We work silently as green warriors, so therefore we can proudly say that merging with nature is combat necessity and conserving nature our duty. Indian Army realizes the importance of environment conservation, and recently organizational reforms have taken place at Army Headquarters level, wherein a colonel level officer has been posted as Colonel Environment. I'm the first Colonel Environment. The aim is to institutionalize all environment efforts and align them with national decarbonization missions. Our focus for future is to embrace the modern green technologies. Some of the major initiatives that Indian Army has undertaken are as flashed on the slide. This year, we all celebrated 75th Independence Day. So did Indian Army, but by undertaking massive afforestation drives across the nation. Proudly, I can say that Indian Army planted over 3 lakh trees in both peace and field locations. I have the honor to introduce Colonel Vaidya, who has flown from Allahabad. He was the commanding officer of Mussoorie Task Force. 40 years ago, in 1982, to revive and restore the glory of Mussoorie Forest, this force was created. During the break time, I would request the audience to interact with the officer. I have another officer with me, who is Major Vaidya, who is based in Kufri-based Ecological Task Force. This is some of his works. I'm just flashing the pictures that I have procured from him. These are the changes that his efforts, his green warriors have brought in. These are the pictures of Himachal Pradesh. So just to summarize, we have 10 ecological TA battalions, and they have collectively planted over 8.79 crores of sapling and covered the area of 87,130 hectares with over 70 to 80% of survival rate. Indian Army is fully committed on Namami Gange mission. Colonel Vaidya is presently commanding Namami Gange Task Force. It is based in Allahabad, and it is doing a yeoman service of cleaning the holy Ganges River. These are some of the pictures that the officer has given me. Now, Catch the Rain campaign and Amrit Sarovar Pariyojana. These are the flagships programs of Government of India for rainwater harvesting. Indian Army has immensely contributed, and I can say, I can proudly say that last year, under Catch the Rain campaign, Indian Army completed 200 projects. And this year, under Amrit Sarovar Pariyojana, we will be completing 750 projects by 15th of August 2023. We realize that the present system of solid waste management in the country, it has got its own limitations and pitfalls. There is a requirement of bringing in a paradigm shift. We need to invert this triangle. So this has helped us to envision, kill the waste where generated, when generated, and send zero waste to landfills. We are hiring a consultancy services of a professional consultancy service to evolve a practical, implementable action plan which embraces modern technology. Notwithstanding that, there are over 10 military stations of Indian Army where modern techniques have already been adopted, where the focus is to reduce the generation of waste, recycle whatever is recyclable, and use the biodegradable material for composting, and just incinerate whatever is non-recyclable, only using green technology. Ladies and gentlemen, the forethought has already been given for diversification of power portfolio of Indian Army. We have already completed 94 megawatts worth projects on solar power. We have also entered into a memorandum of understanding with NTPC for direct purchase of 25 megawatt of solar power. Siachen Glacier till now was totally dependent on diesel-fired generators for electricity. I can proudly say that the glacier is now solarized, and now we are using this solar power for our electricity requirements. The last bullet is very important. We are now finalizing a memorandum of understanding with Solar Energy Corporation of India. The aim is to offer our vacant and unused defense land parcel where large capacity projects can come up. Hopefully, in next few years, we will see large capacity projects on unused and vacant army land. These are some of the examples where these solar projects have been completed. Indian Army has also adopted Griha norms, which are the green building norms. We have incorporated them into our defense work procedure, which basically means that all current and future constructions of Indian Army would be minimum 3-star Griha compliant. A case in point is of the new building of Thal Sena Bhavan, which is coming up in Delhi Cant. Presently, the tendering process is going on. This building has already achieved 4-star Griha rating and has shown 100% compliance to NGT norms. I also wish to apprise the audience that we have already charted a roadmap for introduction of electric vehicles into Indian Army. In phase 1, we are introducing 450 light vehicles and 60 buses in 21 stations in the current financial year. And later on, we wish to expand the scope with the development of supporting infrastructure elsewhere in the country. We have taken a small baby step, and 15 electric vehicles as Army welfare transport is already running in New Delhi. We are also supporting the cause of Made in India and waste to wealth technology. There's an interesting startup company which is based in Mumbai. They have patented the technology of converting waste plastic into usable fuel. We are partnering with them in installation of a pilot project. Gentlemen, since I was given only 10 minutes, so this is my last slide. So we are also playing pivotal role in wildlife conservation, especially of endangered species in border areas. We are working closely with state forest departments and also with Bombay Natural Historical Society in running the training programs for the troops who are deployed in forward areas. And specifically, there are few endangered species in the border areas of Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh, and Rajasthan. Since I started with the Vedic thought, I am ending also on a Vedic thought. Because of paucity of time, I'll just read the English translation. On earth, flower and fruit-bearing trees satiate humans. In paradise, trees become saviors of those who planted them on earth. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Colonel Anupam Sharma.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you. That was really, really very interesting. I was curious to know what is being done about hazardous waste.
So, ma'am, we are trying to comply to the 2016 MOEF guidelines on hazardous waste. Suffice to say, most of our stations, they have got incinerators for sanitary napkins, and hazardous waste as such is getting collected separately and then going to authorized municipal centers where it is processed, if we don't have an internal facility. There are many stations, as I mentioned, which already have incinerators where the hazardous waste can also be treated.
Thank you. Are there any interesting sort of new age projects going on to use alternative jet fuel, for instance?
Yes, ma'am. Alternate jet fuel, Air Force has actually undertaken one project on that, and they have successfully used that alternate jet fuels in AN-32s. And in fact, during one of the parades, the flypast was also done using that kind of jet fuel.
That's very interesting. Thank you. I know this is going to be an unpopular question here, but is there going to be a day when there are no more Army golf courses? Because they have a very, very, very big carbon footprint. They do? They do, sir. So, okay. Yes, but that land can be used for afforestation. It also takes up a lot of water to keep the grass going. It's true, you need to read up about it. Must be recycled, but it's an enormous amount of water gets used in the first place. So when we're talking about reduce, reuse, and recycle, Yes, but it can be afforested. I knew this was going to be unpopular, but I want my answer from Colonel Sharma here, please. You can later, personally.
So, so ma'am, Indian Army supports all sports. Golf is one of them. And we don't have golf courses, we have environmental parks. And we nurture them with great care.
Thank you. That's spoken like an army officer. I was trying to be a journalist. Any questions from the audience?
When are you starting to play golf?
Never. Question, please, no comments.
Yeah, we always talk of the environment outside, external environment. You as a colonel, environment, you are thrust on the internal environment of our offices where we work. Air conditioning, our carpets, the aerosols. Will you work on that?
Sir, I very proudly inform you, sir. We have already worked on, the work has already commenced. The guidelines and advisories have already been promulgated. Yes, I do agree that the degree of compliance varies from place to place. But green office norms, and in fact what you just mentioned is already covered in the Griha norms. So the offices need to turn green, wherein the ventilation, natural light, LEDization. So all these small measures will make us conserve more and more energy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Colonel Sharma. Thank you, everybody. We.
If I might inform you, in Army, strict bosses say that AC will never be brought below 24 degrees. Yes. We do that, sir. And secondly, sir, see, golf courses, good commanders, they make sure that it's 100% recycled water. Yeah. It's a sport. We opened it to Jawans, to ladies. It's a recreation. So, you must also start playing golf.
Thanks, but no thanks. I must close this session now. I'm sorry. We've run out of time. Thank you very much, Colonel Sharma.
The privilege is all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colonel Sharma and Madhur. I'd like to invite Lieutenant General Kamal Davar, former Chief of Defense Intelligence Agency, to speak very briefly on ecology and conservation in Kasauli.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I have just been pushed into to give you some bad news of all what we don't do as far as the environment is concerned, as far as the beautiful Kasauli region is concerned, where we all stay and where you all come. And this place is becoming like a tourist haven or whatever it is. Now, just to introduce myself to some people who may not know me, after my retirement, we have settled here because my wife is from this part of the world. I had no choice in any case. So I head an organization known as SPOKE. SPOKE stands for Society for the Preservation of Kasauli and its Environs. SPOKE. We are not a very popular society either with the government or with the builder hotel lobby. But nevertheless, we are doing whatever we can. So first of all, I'll just very briefly give you the good news. It was founded in 1992 by that famous or the renowned diplomat, Mr. B.K. Nehru. You must have heard of him. He was our ambassador to the US and UK and all that, and a governor and all that. The society comprised of old ICAS, IS, and a large number of armed forces veterans and some eminent people. They're still staffed by old people, and I've been pleading with everybody, all the younger ones, you know, the veterans, grandchildren and all, come and join it, because what you do now is going to be useful for you, not for me or, you know, my this thing. Now, what we did was that since there was no plan, the first good thing, I'm just giving you 3-4 good points, good news, what the spoke has achieved. Now, we managed to convince the Himachal government, much against their wishes, to issue out a Kasauli development plan in 1995. It became in 2001 We achieved something. And by 2011, there is a full-fledged Kasauli development plan. But how much of it is implemented? The implementation, like many things in our beloved country, is tardy. And I was very happy, just to interject where these colonels had come, that, you know, all these things which are happening, including in Ladakh, because I've also been General Officer Commanding of the entire Ladakh sector in the late 90s. So I was very, very happy to hear this. And also a bit of good news, when I was the 11 Corps Commander, which looked after entire Punjab, the army that had cleared the Harike Bird Sanctuary. You'll have to give me 2 minutes. Now, what we are doing is we've given presentations to the National Green Tribunal, which this was about 5 years back, and with the result that some water problems in Kasauli Cant are being solved, and a lot of encroachments and illegal, unauthorized, unabashed building construction work which was going on, has been stalled. But we have to face the music and the flag. Now what we also do is with the schools here, we've been planting trees, and only 2 weeks back with Pine Grove and Lawrence School, Sinar, of which our lady Ashima is also this thing, we planted over 400 to 500 trees, including 200 Deodar trees. Our Solan battalion has also taken 100 Deodar trees and planting all this. But we have to, go up to them. And I am flooded with suggestions, but I don't need suggestions. I need workers, who can physically move around and do something. Now, this vehicle park, which you may have seen, it's a bit of a, architectural monstrosity. It also came up thanks to the spoke saying that we must have car parking because, there is no car parking. Garbage disposal, I'm very happy to note what the army is doing. I'm going to get in touch with them because I'm slightly dated, so I didn't know that the army has already got some disposal plants and things like that. We've been cleaning the bodies. Bodies are natural spring waters with the ASHA workers. But you'd be surprised to know, and you must know this, that some of our lower administrative staff, we tell them, we'll give you money, let's do something ourselves, we'll make some garbage, disposable bins and things like that. They're just not interested. It's amazing. Now I come to a couple of, I'll just take a minute, a couple of, points regarding which I constitute under the column bad news. Now there is unabashed construction going on, unabashed. For example, we've been telling and we've met successive chief ministers. I'm hoping to meet the Honorable Governor in the first week of November. Let the elections be on. In any case, the politicians are not interested. So I hope the constitutional head, like the governor, would be interested. And what we are doing is we're going to request him that please don't give NOCs or construction, this thing, in areas which are already flooded with too much of construction work. Give in Himachal, you can make anything anywhere. Just go 20, 30, 40 kilometers outside Kasauli and you'll be able to make your great hotels. Now, garbage disposal, the army is doing a lot and we have, achieved something or the other. But, people who come from down below, they litter this place left, right and center. However, just 30 seconds more. However, we've been having a very major problem about firefighting. This year in Kasauli, we've had too much of fire thanks to the pine needles. We're looking for ways and means what to do with pine vehicles. Now the last point I had was that e-vehicles, one of our members of the spoke, Jagmohan Luthra, who's not here, we requested Mr. KTS Tulsi, Member Parliament, and he was kind enough to give us 30 lakhs, and we are going to purchase these e-vehicles. I'm glad the army is also doing it. We'll try and liaise with them to find out which good e-vehicles we can get so that, a bit of this pollution and things like that goes down. And finally, I always keep telling people and writing about it that Himachal Pradesh must not go the Uttarakhand way. You know what is happening in Uttarakhand? All these four great, the tourist circuit to religious places. But what is happening in Uttarakhand? It will happen because we are also shaking the strata here moving these ancient mountains which have provided stability to all this. I was given 3 minutes, I've taken 5. My apologies, but environment is not such a small subject to be dealt with. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Our final session today is the ultimate finale and much awaited for, and is on the first Hindi work of fiction to win the Booker Prize as we know it. Comparable to Rushdie's Midnight's Children, her style creates a new language in literature. Her understanding of partition is almost at par with Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan. A completely serious author in a world overshadowed by publicity, our salutes to you may be 4 years late, but are finally here. We welcome Gitanjali Shri in conversation with Makarand Paranjpe.
So all good things have to come to an end, and we are at literally the finale of the Khushwant Singh Literature Festival of 2022. But in a sense, we've saved the best for the last, because this is a very important book, Ret Samadhi. I'm privileged to be here with Gitanjali ji, whom I've known for many more years than I care to mention. And here is the English translation by Daisy Rockwell. Let's remember that it's the translation which has got the Booker. They still don't have a system where works in languages other than English, maybe Arabic there's a Booker, but I don't think they have a Booker where, or maybe it's a shared Booker of the original and the translation. But before we plunge into the book, I did want to go back to the memory of Khushwant Singh, who has inspired this festival. Yesterday I mentioned that there was a lot more to him. He was a personality larger than life. His joke books are still more popular than his literary works. But the important thing is we should go back to Khushwant Singh, the writer. We mentioned earlier Train to Pakistan, which was like a foundational text for the partition industry, I should call it, literary industry. And it ends with a sacrifice, if you remember the book, where a kind of ruffian, a Sikh ruffian, sacrifices his life for his Muslim beloved. This book also has a sacrifice, but we'll come back to that in a moment. What I really wanted to say is that Khushwant Singh needs to be taken seriously as a writer. And the book that I think is really outstanding and path-breaking is Delhi, where the protagonist is a hermaphrodite who represents, in a sense, the checkered history of what has become India's capital. So remembering Khushwant Singh and also congratulating both his son, Rahul Singh, and Nilufar Bilimoria ji. Let's begin this session. Yesterday when I met Gitanjali another time, she narrated an anecdote. I want to begin with that. So she said, someone came up to me and said, you look a lot like Gitanjali Shri. So what I want to say is that the idea of Gitanjali Shri has become bigger than Gitanjali Shri, which is a wonderful thing. But I want to add a caveat. It's really unfortunate that till she won the Booker, that too in translation, nobody recognized her. Her book was published in 2018, and the country woke up to its importance only when it was awarded a foreign prize, which shows how deeply colonized we are, and also how, until a book makes it into English, it doesn't count for anything among the literati and the chatterati, And this is an unfortunate thing, but we have to accept it for what it is, and then go back to this book, the Hindi book, because I believe there's a ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क हिंदी और अंग्रेज़ी में, और एक तरह से कहा जाए तो ये हिंदी नहीं है जो हिंदी हम आजकल बोलते सुनते हैं. मैं इसको कहता हूँ ये एक unpartitioned ज़ुबान है. And after Krishna Sopti, I haven't read a book which in a way recreates language the way Gitanjali does. So a great work of literature is measured not only by its thematic gravity or gravitas, but by what it does to the language. So I'm going to invite Gitanjali to read a passage, both from the Hindi original and the English. But I want to start by once again emphasizing what an important book this is. In fact, it may be the book of the century. The century is still very young. We hope many more good books come out in Hindi. But it has the makings of a very, very great book, which will last a long time. And I haven't been as excited by a original work in Hindi as this book for a very long time. The last time I felt something important had happened was Alka Saroghi's book, Calcutta via Bypass. Kali Katha via Bypass, exactly. And this is also kind of postmodern text, but we'll come back to these points later. But I don't want to typecast this book. This is, you can't call it women's writing, this writing, that writing. It's a really major book. And I guess after Nirmal Verma, again, comparisons are odious. I'm not making comparisons or making any generalizations. I'm just saying a very important Hindi writer has arrived. And please, let's give her a big hand. And now, before I invite Gitanjali, I want to ask one little question. How many people have actually read the book? In Hindi, please. In Hindi, I'm not expecting more than 4 hands, and I'm absolutely right. Chalo, you count. I give you. आपको पास कर दिया मैंने. But यही मुश्किल है आजकल. हम पढ़ नहीं पाते हैं, you know. And the book has become an accessory. So let's break that barrier. And let's please invite Gitanjali ji to read a passage and draw us into the heart of this extraordinary narrative. Please.
Thank you, Makrand. सबसे पहले मैं कुछ एक दो चीज़ें आपसे कहना चाहती हूँ. एक तो मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ, तहे दिल से मुझे खुशी है कि आज यहाँ मुझे आने का मौका मिला. और नीलोफर और राहुल सिंह जी, आप लोगों ने इसरार किया और मैं मानना चाहती थी. बहुत पैक्ड प्रोग्राम्स थे, उसके बीच में भी मुझे लगा कि नहीं, मैं यहाँ ज़रूर आना चाहती हूँ और मैंने वक्त निकाला. मैं आपको बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कहती हूँ. मेरे लिए ये जगह बहुत अज़ीज़ है. मैं कसौली 15-20 साल पहले बार बार आती थी. आईवी लॉज जो आपके क्लब के पास है, वहाँ हम लोग थिएटर वर्कशॉप्स करते थे. और एक हम लोग का ग्रुप था, आर्टिस्ट्स और राइटर्स और इंटेलेक्चुअल्स. हम लोग मिल के वहाँ पर हम लोगों ने अपने कुछ नाटक वगैरह तैयार किए. तो बहुत सुंदर यादें हैं. उसके अलावा खुशवंत सिंह जी से जुड़ा है ये लिट फेस्ट. वो मेरे लिए बहुत गौरव की बात है. खुशवंत जी के हम लोग ज़बरदस्त एडमायरर्स थे. और उन्होंने कितने अच्छे से पहचाना था द प्लेस ऑफ इर्रेवरेंस एंड ह्यूमर इन आर्ट एंड लिटरेचर एंड सोशल क्रिटिसिज्म. I don't know how well that will go down today with too many people, but I think we really do admired him, and he inspired us. And I'm very glad to be associated with this Lit Fest. I'm very happy Makrand is here to talk, because I've written the book, he's going to talk. We've made a deal. पर मकरंद, बहुत प्यार से मैं आपसे एक दो चीज़ों में शुरू से ही असहमति जता देना चाहती हूँ. भूल गई हूँ, आपने बहुत सी चीज़ें कहीं तो कुछ रह जाएंगी, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि ये ज़रूरी है बताना. ऐसा सही नहीं है कि रेत समाधि तभी पहचानी गई है जब वो अंग्रेज़ी में आई है और बुकर उसको मिला है. ये बात सही है कि बुकर के मिलने के बाद उसको एक दूसरी तरह की विजिबिलिटी एकदम से मिल गई. जो होता है अंग्रेज़ी की ये जगह है, आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं. लेकिन हम लोग अपने अपने छोटे और बड़े दायरे में भी चीज़ें हमारे होती रहती हैं, और वहाँ पे इस किताब को पहचान जब ये निकली है तब से मिलनी शुरू हुई थी। कृष्णा सोबती जैसे मेरी जो बिल्कुल गुरुजन हैं लेखकों में, डॉयन ऑफ हिंदी लिटरेचर, कृष्णा सोबती ने इसको बिल्कुल शुरू में ही इसको पढ़ा और इसके निकलने के 2-4 महीने के अंदर, एंड शी रोट परहैप्स हर लास्ट बुक रिव्यू एंड शी सेड दैट दिस इज़ अ बुक, मतलब इसके बारे में बहुत उन्होंने ऐसी चीज़ें बोली कि बहुत मुझे बढ़ावा मिलता है याद करके भी। और उन्होंने ये कहा मुझसे कि जल्दी में मत रहना, बोली कि कुछ इसके बारे में लोगों ने कहना शुरू किया, मैंने कहा नहीं धीरे धीरे लोग पढ़ रहे हैं, तो बोली कि इट्स अ बिग बुक, जल्दी नहीं इसको कोई पढ़ेगा, एंड डोंट वरी, इसको लोग धीरे धीरे पढ़ेंगे, धीरे धीरे पहचानेंगे। सो आई थिंक it's not fair to say that nothing was happening to it till English came into the scene. But of course, English has that position, and naturally it gets different prominence. The book came out in French translation, an excellent French translation before the English. But zahir hai, एक French